Can you believe that this animation is actually running through a web browser? Well, if you want to find out how you can get this to work with Blender, stick around. G'day everyone, Dicko here with another kick-ass walkthrough, and this one's going to be a little bit different in that it's not just a walkthrough, but it's also a review, and it's a review on a book specifically about character rigging for games. And I think that if anyone is trying to rig characters for games using Blender, this book may save your ass. Seriously, if you're coming from Maya and you have no understanding of how the whole armature system works in Blender, then this book will actually save your ass. If you're an amateur and you're looking to get into game design and you don't have the budget to do Maya or whatever, and you have access to Blender, then this book is going to save your ass. And it's called A Complete Guide to Character Rigging for Games Using Blender, and it's made by a person called Armin Halak. And it looks like this. It's available on Amazon. I was given this as a review copy, so just bear in mind that I did receive this for free, but the review I'm going to give to you right now is actually 100% honest, unbiased, and I believe wholeheartedly that you should probably get this book if you're into rigging for game engines. Now, I am going to say this. If you want proof, stick around, because there are some things, even in this book, that I did not know about Blender that have completely changed the way that I'm going to be rigging characters going forward. And not in terms of just game engine character rigs, but in terms of just animation rigs in general. So stick around and let me show you that the proof is actually in the pudding with this book. All right, so let's just jump in. I'm going to give a quick little demo, and then let's summarize with why this book is important. All right, let's check it out. Okay, so for this demo, I've already gone ahead and rigged up most of this rig with a very basic setup. So what I've done is essentially gone ahead and taken a Mixamo basic rig and attached controls to it. No plugins, no nothing like that. Haven't used the Mixamo add-on at all. It's just some very basic controls with some copy transform constraints. So what happens here is I've got my deform rig, and then I've got my control rig up and running here, and everything is largely working. So we've got the fingers working here, for instance, doing its thing, looking great. We've got some basic hip controls, some basic COG controls, along with some upper body controls. And as you can see, the arms are not working yet because I am going to be using the book to help me create some toon arms for this rig. So toon arms meaning that we can get some nice squash and stretch, and then also get some bendy bones going on through here, and then also be able to export this out to a game engine or through to an online web-based animation, so AR or on a web browser or whatever, so GLTF essentially. So we can actually do that with this, with the guide in this book here. All these the principles that are talked about in this book. So we're going to go ahead and see what we got here. So I have everything else has been copied with a copy transforms. So the basic deform rig has already been set up with its copy transforms, except for the arms. And the reason being is that we're going to actually manipulate these parts of the rig to make it possible to get this toon deformation going on. So what we will need actually is a duplicate of the arms. And what we're going to do is grab that duplicate of the arms and create a bunch of bendy bones. And from there, we are going to constrain multiple arm joints to the bendy bones in a specific way that allows us to export out the deformations to a game engine or a web browser, which is really, really cool. Okay, so I've got this basic rig done, and I want to create a cartoony rig, at least with the arms, to make it really, really cool. So squash and stretch, some bending, that sort of thing. And I will tell you this, I've been trying to do this sort of stuff for years in Blender and exporting it out to, say, an AR experience or a game engine or whatever. And I've always had to try and find workarounds. And they have been more successful than others in the sense of both file size and optimizations and all that sort of stuff. Now, this book showed me one little thing about how you can structure the hierarchy in your bones and how you can constrain bones to bendy bones and make them work in an export. Now, I never knew this was possible until I looked at this in the book, and it was just eluding me. It was looking at me in the eye this entire time that I've been doing rigging in Blender, and I can't believe I haven't seen this before. Now, the thing about bendy bones in Blender, for one, is that it's a completely unique feature within Blender itself. It cannot be exported out of Blender, and it cannot be adapted from another software. So not even Maya or Cinema 4D or any other 3D package has what Blender can do with bendy bones. It's a completely procedural thing that exists within Blender. That being said, you can constrain individual joints or individual bones to bendy bones. And I never knew you can do this on the individual segments of each bendy bone. And this book goes through how to do that to some degree. And I can't believe I haven't seen this before, but it absolutely changes the way that I'm going to be rigging in the future. Now, I'm going to show you how I went about this, and then I'm going to export this out to a web browser. So I'm going to use a GLTF to export this out, and then I'm going to actually open the exact same animation in the web browser, and it will run in real time. It's going to be absolutely awesome to see. And again, let's go ahead and check it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually grab these arm bones and duplicate them. All right, we're going to duplicate them and move them to their own layer just for now. And these bendy bones, or these bones, are going to be subdivided. I'm going to go 8 segments on each side. I've got mirroring going on here. And basically, they are still part of the rig in the sense that they can still be manipulated by the rig, so to speak, as you can see here, but they aren't being directly manipulated just yet. Now, we have an issue here with the arms, only because this controller is constrained. Basically, it's not constrained, but it's basically not being manipulated from the shoulder. And the reason being is because we haven't yet linked these bendy bones to these IK controls. That's why this is not working. All right. And this deformation hand joint is a child of these bendy bones. So therefore, we can't use them. All right. Also note that the original deform bones are there as well. So these bendy bones have not been skinned yet to the rig. They're just following along with the same way that these are, because they are still a child of the shoulder joint. All right. Keep that in mind. So I am talking a lot here. This is more of an overview than anything else, just to prove how good this book really is. All right. So if you want to get a fuller in-depth understanding of this, then the book is where you go to get this understanding. Okay. This is not a fully fledged tutorial. It's more of an overview of the advantages of this book. Okay. Let's move on. So let's just reset that pose for one moment. All right, cool. And see what we got here. So we have these bones. All right. And these are the things that are deforming the arm at the moment, but there are limitations. We can't really twist the hands. So if I grab the controls here and try to twist the arms, you get this crushing effect in the arm. Let's split this view so you can see what's going on without any interruption. So if I try rotating this, it's going to crush. So we want to use those bendy bones to drive the rotation through the elbow or through the arm. So we can actually work with that in mind. Okay. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is add some extra joints that are going to deform the arms. Okay. So first, let's go ahead and duplicate these arms one more time. And straight away, we are going to go ahead and subdivide them. I think 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have actually subdivided these bones. Now they're all separate bones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 of them. And that will match our bendy bone setup. Okay. I hope you see where this is going. So first thing I'm going to do is just scale up those bones so we can actually see them a little bit clearer. And what we need to do, and this is a classic Maya sort of technique as well, to get twisted in our arms. What we're going to do is grab these bones here, right? Right now they're all children of each other. and make it a single child of this bone here. All right. So parent that, keep offset. Same with this one, keep offset. All right. So these are actually going to be deforming the entire arm. Okay. As well. All right. So in order to get this to work, we need to have these bendy bones actually not only rotating and twisting, but also copying the stretch of this IK that has been set up here. Okay, we need to have it stretch along for the ride. So what we're going to do is grab the arm here, the main arm from the IK, and then the bendy bone set up here. The constraint, we want to have this bendy bone stretched to this arm. Okay, so this will go from here to here. So let's just hide away this original bone here. Strain, stretch to. All right. So now when I move the arm, it's going to stretch along for the ride. We need to do the same thing for this joint here, this bone here. So I'm going to hide this away. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and stretch to. So now we get this action going on, which is perfect for what we need. All right. Same thing on this side. All right. This is a very basic setup. So now the arms would be working functionally in terms of the bendy bones doing their thing. All right, cool. So now we want to get that twist to work, right? We want to get that twist to work in the bendy bones because right now if we twist the arm, it's not going to twist any of the bones, right? So let's go ahead and just put these into their own little group. I'm going to put that into their own group over here. And I'm going to set up some twists down here in the bendy bones. It's under the twist handles here. So keeping a note of that bone that we're going to be using here. I'm going to copy the name, grab this bone, and we want to set the end handle to this control here. And we want to set it to be absolute. All right. So now when we rotate the arm, it's going to twist along for the ride. Now this one can be the same up here, by the way. This one can be the same up here. We can go ahead and set this twist start handle for this bone here to match our shoulder joint. So if we go ahead and copy, paste it in there, set it to absolute, we can now get some nice twist in the arm as well, if we had to. So if I move the arm around now, it will twist a little bit to match the arm. So yeah, it's twisting a little bit to match the shoulder, which is awesome. Same thing up here. Absolute. Shoulder R. This one down here, absolute. Shoulder R. No, sorry. We want to have wrist, the hand, sorry, hand R. Cool. So now we got this twist going, but it's not deforming along for the ride. Okay. Not deforming the actual arm yet. Not yet, at least. So what we need to do is create a bunch of constraints on the arms the joints that we just created earlier. Okay. So firstly, let's just make sure this is all set up. Also note that with the bendy bones, we can also curve in and out the arms. So we can actually keyframe these. I'm not going to do a fancy rig to make this work. I'm just going to do I'm just going to animate this manually for the demo that I'm going to publish in a second. All right, so let's go ahead and build out our constraints so this will all work in tandem. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So there's a really interesting feature in the Blender constraint system that I didn't know about until I saw something in this book to point it out. All right, and this is like page what, 5 or 6 or something like that in this book. So I'm not going that far into the book to find some nuggets of information that are absolutely gems, absolute gems. So like on page 8 or 7 and 8 on this book, they mention a flat bone hierarchy to establish they bend to work, basically. So the problem is if you do like a spline IK out of Blender, because it's not a flat hierarchy, it doubles up the transforms every single time that you add a consecutive bend or transform along the chain. So what you end up with is a essentially double transforms going throughout the whole thing. And that's a real problem if you're trying to get nice cartoony deformations out into a game engine, right? So even just talking about this here in this book in page 8, we get some really cool information about how you can overcome that through hierarchy. And it's as simple as that. So basically, what I need to do to make this work is all these bones are technically part of a flat hierarchy as a child of a single joint in the arm chain. So this is basically the same way it works in Maya. I can't believe I didn't think about this for context of Blender, but having that book right there just opened up my mind. I'm like, okay, shit, okay, this is something I haven't thought of before. So if you go to any given joint here, so let's just go to our joints here, and I'm going to go ahead and hide away the original setup here. All right. So what I'm going to do is grab those arms and just place them in their own little layer as well. So I'm just going to hide away some joints just for a second and move into another layer somewhere that I don't have to worry about right now. All right, cool. Let's just put those in their own layer as well. Okay, so we have these joints here. Let's unhide everything. And we have our bendy bone. Now, what you can do with these bendy bones is constrain the bendy bone to one segment with a copy transform, right? And this copy transform, if you look over here under head and tail, you will see the term follow B bone. Okay. And if you turn that on and you give it a head tail proportion, it can move down the chain or whatever, but it becomes really, really useful. So keep that in mind. So we can actually go in segments along the chain with the right copy transform numbers. So we know that our joints have 8 segments, right? Our joints have 8 segments. Our bendy bone has 8 segments. So all we need to do is divide by 8 to get our head tail value in our copy transform. So all we need to do is grab this same copy transform. So grabbing this joint here, and then grabbing this joint, copy transforms. And then all we need to do is just slide that object down to here, which is a value of 1.25. That's the divisible by 8. And then work our way down the chain. So the next one will be 2.5. So same thing, grab this one, making sure that that value is also turned on, follow B bone. So that function is going to be part of that. So what we can do is just continue on with that functionality. Transforms, follow B bone, and it will also inherit the rotation stuff as well. And then 2.5, and we're going to work our way down the chain. All right, so let's check it out. So what we can do now is try to twist our joints. So let's go ahead and move the arm, and the arm's moving perfectly, and it's also inheriting the twist. Now, the only reason why this is not deforming is because we need to reskin this body. So let's go ahead and do that. Grab this, grab it. Firstly, make sure that everything has been turned off in the deform joints, apart from what we have. So grab those and grab those. Make sure that they are all set to non-deforming. All right. Make sure that's all the case. Yep, it looks like it is. And now, let's skin this. All right, let's check out the twist and see if it's working. And it looks like it's working really, really well. That's awesome. So the only problem we have now is that we're getting this still stretching there. And it's only because our original deform rig hasn't been constrained to the IK either. So we can quickly fix that with a copy transforms. So basically grab the IK, grab the other arm, copy transforms, grab this one, copy transforms, copy this one, copy transforms. Let's give it a go. And now you can see it's working great. And the cool thing is that you get the squash and stretch, right? Super cool. You get the twist. But let's also have a look at something else that's magical. If I grab the bendy bones now and I were to keyframe that, let's go into our roll. You can actually get cartoony deformation. Now, just keep in mind, if I go ahead and export this out now, let's see what happens. And hopefully it will export with the correct deformation. Okay, so before we export this all out, there's a few things we need to make sure we have set up. So firstly, I want to just test to see if the animation will export effectively. So what I'm going to do is select my armature, go to pose mode, and select my bendy bones. So just the bendy bones. And what I'm going to do is actually keyframe it moving back and forth like that. So add a more keyframe there, add a keyframe there, and then back to 0, just to see how it all works. And also just get a preview of how it all is, how effective it is as well. All right. And then what I'm going to do is keyframe the hand as well. So I'm going to reset the pose there. All right, reset the pose there. And keyframe this. Stretch it out. Keyframe that. Stretch it out. Keyframe that. And then I will also do some twist work. So keyframe this to see how the arm will work there. So keyframing that. And then also the other way around. Like that. And back to 0. So what we're going to have is this little animation test of back, forward, up, down, stretch, twist, twist. So the reason why it's clipping is because it's crossing the 180 degree border. Now the reason for that is because of the quaternion. So what I'm going to do is just go to pose, convert rotation nodes, and set it to XYZ. That should fix that problem. That's better. There we go. All right. So we've got some stretch, 2D arms, left and right, and now we're ready to export. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and select everything there in the scene. Go to File, Export, and we're going to go with a GLTF in this case. And the GLTF is basically an online format. It's like the JPEGs of 3D, that's what it's usually called. But basically it allows you to do 3D animation in the web browser. And also you can actually export this stuff out to some game engines as well. So with that in mind, I've got the GLB set up there. I've got a few settings turned on. So I've got selected objects, include animation. I want to merge the active actions under one animation for now. I'm going to go under the armature, export all armature actions. And under the data tab, I also want skinning and armature, export deformation bones only. So I don't want to worry about any of the extra crap that I've done for the extra bones. I just want the deformation bones. So with that in mind, I can go ahead and export that out. It's going to bake that animation down and export out the file. And now what I will need is a place to test this stuff out in. So what I'm going to do is open a browser and type in Babylon GLTF viewer. All right, search for that and you'll get this page here. And all I need to do now is drag and drop my GLTF file into this container, all right, to test it out. So let's go ahead and see how we go. So under my documents, let's find my file, and I'm going to drag my file in there. And there we go. How cool is this? and it's giving us the exact animation as what we had inside of Blender using bendy bone constraints and using individual joints to drive the system. How cool is that? So now you are now able to create cartoony rigs in your game engines. And it's all because of this book. This book tells you everything you need to know about those sort of principles to make an effective rig for animation out of Blender into your game engines. And the result is awesome. Now, I'll be doing more and more of this in the future when it comes to my own rigs as well, only from those few pages of information. So, so now essentially I can really optimize my rigs going forward. I can't wait. Okay, so this book is actually divided up into a bunch of chapters. So it does range from pretty basic to pretty complex. Now, if you are a amateur rigger in Blender, this may seem a little bit overwhelming to you, but I guarantee that if you sat down and had a look at some chapters one by one, so you're looking at sort of uh, specific features that you want to integrate into your rigs, you may find this a little easier to digest. That being said, I actually prefer the fact that there's no fluff at all in this book. It's pure facts, pure logic, and pure, easy to read instructions on why you should be thinking about rigging in this sort of method. So the rigging chapters include weight painting, some topology recommendations, scene and model preparation, naming conventions, the approach towards the rigging process, how the root bone works, bone orientation, body skeleton orientations, weight painting, um, constraints, dealing with clutter, B-bone rigging, weight painting methodology, drivers and facial rigs and everything. It goes through all of that in quite a lot of detail. And you can pick and choose chapters as you see fit. So if you're familiar with rigging in general, but you want to sort of brush up and get more optimized in rigging for games, then you can just pick and choose whatever chapter you find that you lack knowledge in the most. If you're an absolute beginner, this is going to be a pretty wordy book. I will guarantee that. That being said, if you're coming from a professional standpoint, especially if you're coming from Maya or you're familiar with Blender's rigging system in general, but you are now trying to rig for, say, Unreal or whatever, then this book will probably save a lot of time and a lot of hardship trying to find the right tutorials online. It kind of has everything you need to know in many regards. The only thing it doesn't really cover is scripting. Now, you shouldn't be really expected to understand scripting to do a lot of the stuff you do with game-centric rigs, so to speak, because a lot of those scripts won't be able to be exported anyway. But that being said, it does go through some pretty cool stuff, like where to weight paint for articulation and stuff like that, where to place joints, where the most optimal place to put the joints are, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just generally a really comprehensive breakdown on the rigging process. So, would I recommend it? Absolutely. Would I recommend it for students? Absolutely. Would I recommend it to professionals moving on from Maya to a Blender workflow? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. It is comprehensive. It is easy to read. It is to the point, and it is an absolute must, in my opinion, if you're trying to dedicate your career towards this goal. All right. So there's my thoughts. I think it's awesome. Take a look. You can see some previews up on the Amazon marketplace. So you can actually look up the book on Amazon and you get a preview to check out. So check it out, see what the chapters are, form some opinions on your own. It's doing pretty well on the charts in terms of just instructional videos. So again, it's definitely worth checking out. All right, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this enlightening. I thought it was really important to talk about this as well because it's a book, right? So, a lot of people dismiss books nowadays for learning content, which is crazy. Anyway, enjoy the process. I'll catch you later. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.